Hello and welcome back to another panel discussion with New Catholic Generation. We can't even get through 2 seconds without
It's okay, we
I
just
say
did
keep
this.
that.
Look, we're so genuine and real. Like,
I
we
know,
can't even...
It's 8 o'clock in the morning here in Steubenville, Ohio. We've just started.
Good morning.
I'm David from the YouTube channel Catholic Contrast. I'm joined by guest panelist Catherine Carnell, guest panelist Joe D'Antona,
Hi.
Still yelling.
And I'm tired. I'm getting tired.
and she's Renee from Reborn Pure. We've gotten a lot of requests to talk about the upcoming United States presidential election. Lizzie, 93 writes, talk about how to vote in this election as a Catholic. So, as opposed to previously in the year, now we finally have the 2 nominees for the major parties of the United States, which would be Hillary Clinton and the great
Trump.
business mongrel.
Mongrel? You meant mogul.
Mongrel.
That was actually an accident.
Freudian slip. It's when you
Yeah,
say one
yeah.
thing and you mean your mother. I mean none other.
This is all public for the record.
Where would we even start?
So are you saying, like, we have to vote for either one of them or vote for none at all? Or what do we do?
Joe, what has been your stance? Because I've seen him over the past few months post at least 2 or 3 times
You've
a day.
watched my breakdown into insanity. Okay, I'll come out and say it. I don't think you can vote for either of them morally. I think that both of them have such heinous pasts and such progressive views on how to run a country, on how to interact with other countries.
And I guess that would maybe be something to elaborate on, because I know that was that's a pretty controversial position amongst the
Yeah.
Catholics and the right, because there are a bunch of Catholics and just people, Republicans now, after Trump has won the nomination, saying, well, we gotta vote for Trump because otherwise the Democrat, Hillary Clinton, the pro-choice, the
Right.
pro-every other progressive position will get in the White House.
Yeah. One of the big problems is we know exactly what we're getting with Hillary Clinton, which is something that people will say is a positive, or is a negative, but it really actually is a positive. With Trump, you have no idea what this guy is going to do. His position changes from day to day. Today he's pro-life. Tomorrow he thinks that the pro-life agenda doesn't win. It needs to be taken off the Republican ticket, off the Republican agenda, So I just don't think that you can really trust the guy. And the question I've asked myself is, would he do anything good for the Republican Party? No, I don't think so. Would he do anything good for conservatism? No. For what Catholics care about? No, I don't think so. And in fact, I think he'd do a lot of damage. I think he'd do at least as much damage as Hillary Clinton.
What the people want to hear is, we know they're both awful choices, but they want to see us still compare and contrast them anyway, because that's what people are looking for right now, especially the Catholics and the conservatives.
Yeah.
The way I frame it is, okay, how would you like to die? Would you like to die by poisoning or electric chair? Well, one might be quicker and less painful, but you die either way.
That's basically what I just said, but now we gotta compare the electric chair.
Yeah.
So let's do it, I guess.
Yeah. So, for me, I'd just sort of shrug and say, I don't know, kill me, whatever.
Well, and then there's some Republicans who say, well, if nothing else, it's about the Supreme Court positions, because the next president will probably nominate a lot of Supreme Court justices, and, well, should go with Trump. He's more likely to nominate Republican ones.
And as a matter of fact, I think that Trump just came out and said that he was going to nominate a pro-life justice. You'd have to look that up. But
No, he did come out and say that. The other comment, though,
He's
that
like,
he's
you
famous
said
for...
that, but...
Well, the other comment he's famous for is saying that he wants to appoint judges like his pro-abortion liberal sister. So you look at that and you go, okay, well, which one is it? Which Donald Trump am I getting? Yeah. Which one am I
I
getting?
think he said he wanted to put his daughter on the $10 bill or something.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
he said lots of
Well, I
very
think something that we
strange
need to
things about
remember
his
about
daughter.
the American political system at this point, though, is that for as much good that people are trying to do, and I really do believe that both Clinton and Trump are trying to do the right thing. I don't know how long they've been in the system, and I can't speak to their personal motives at all, and I don't think that's right that we should. But, the entire American electoral system has become one giant party. Literally, it's a giant party. So I think that part of the problem here is that we're trying to figure out what people really mean when our entire system, at this point, is really just about getting people to listen to you. So it's very likely that all of the candidates at this point have promised things that they're not actually going to follow through on. So, politics, oh gosh, which is trying to, like, that goes back all the way to Athens, like, and I remember reading an honors class about the ancient democracies there, but the difference is that America is a democratic republic, and that we actually have a system that makes sense when people pay attention to it, and all these problems with Trump and Clinton would be fixed if we actually looked at our system and tried to go back to a model of electing presidents that followed the system and respected Congress and what delegates are supposed to do. But since we don't do that, we have to talk about what Trump and Clinton are promising or not promising when they have to promise and not promise things in order to get people to vote for them, because nobody is actually looking at the policies or doing anything really to make public their real stances and fight for something they believe in.
Well, that's the whole thing, isn't it? Like, this whole system is supposed to be built on an educated electorate. And that went by the wayside quite a while ago, and we see now it's come to fruition. Now we have, you have a criminal and you have a blowhard at best running for the highest office, not just in the land, but on the planet. And so I think that you've really struck it there. If that's what people would do, we wouldn't have nearly as many problems. Yeah. At least not the same ones that we have
and
right now.
People don't get involved in politics because it's fun. Like, they really don't. So I think that we should give our candidates, as much as we might disagree with them and even might want to, like, anyway, as much as we might disagree with them, I think we should give our candidates credit for attempting to do something about what they see as a problem.
Maybe, but I will interject. He does seem to be having the time of his life up there. I think he really enjoys. He's gotten something like $1 billion or $2 billion in free
media
TV.
advertising.
I mean, he's loving every minute of it up there. I mean, he might be 70 years old, but I think this is his greatest show in his mind that he's ever done.
I think it's totally what you said about it's more about who can be heard and speak the loudest rather than what the policy position is, because I cannot remember a single thing that Jeb Bush really platformed for. Like, I don't remember anything, but I know what Trump said. He's going to build the wall.
And a lot of the candidates that fell by the wayside had really sound policy, like very thought out policy and a lot of experience in the Senate or in the respective legislatures. But because it's become kind of a personality contest through years of degeneration of the American political system and just through total attack on our educated our people in general, on our whole country, like, we can't talk about policy, which sucks.
So just the catchphrases go around, like, build a wall.
Yeah.
The 10-second sound bites,
Yeah. That being said, about what we're dealing with in general, how do we talk about specifics for our candidates on how to vote when we can't even establish specifics because our system right now isn't letting us?
Right. Well, what worries me is, I mean, part of me sort of trends to what you said before.
Yeah.
He's not really going to do any of the things that he's saying he's going to do. Neither is Clinton, blah, blah, blah. I loved watching Hillary Clinton backtrack in our backyard of West Virginia, where, it was like a year ago, she said, I'm going to destroy the coal industry. And then she comes back to West Virginia, she's like, I misspoke. And,
really?
And it's sort of like saying, I'm going to kill your mother. Oh, well, I was having an off day. Like, you can't come back from that, right? And so she lost it by a pretty wide margin. But, so part of me says, okay, well, he's just doing that. But the other part of me says, but what if he's not, though? Because if we've made that mistake as a species plenty of times through history, where we go, oh, but he's just a strong leader and he's just saying stuff to get in power, and then they do horrible or even just stupid things, and we have to deal with it for a minimum of 4 years, unless we're going to talk about, all sorts of shenanigans.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing that I worry about is, okay, maybe he doesn't mean it, but there's no way of knowing that.
But what if he does?
Right. Yeah.
It's that unknown. It's the what if he does.
Yeah.
When you said about Clinton, Miss Clinton, when she backtracked on the coal industry, is really important too, because we all forget how much power words have, and as cute in kindergarten as that sounds, when you're saying them over and over again in tons of different states to tons of different citizens, things get switched around and there are slight little contortions of phrases, and you go from, like, I'm going to build a wall to I'm going to create a mall. And then, like, people on one half of the U.S. are like, oh my gosh, I love malls. I can't wait to go to the mall. This is the best president ever. And then people on the eastern side are like, what are we building a wall to? Is going to be like China? Like, what's happening? And so, like, the fact that nobody respects the power of language anymore in a way that's tangible and perceivable by the American public is a huge problem too. Because then we can't trust, or we feel like we can't trust what our leaders are saying, because everybody backtracks. And it's like a disease in the system. I hate to sound like a high schooler, but it really is.
Yeah. No, what do you guys...
I yell in public.
Am I able to ask a question?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
What do you guys think, because the other outlier to this is Bernie Sanders. And he's not going to win the Democratic nomination, but saying he did. What would you guys think of that? My first reaction, I mean, I'll give that in a minute, but what do you guys think about Bernie Sanders if it were Sanders versus Trump?
Sanders versus
Wow.
Trump.
I know I heard a lot
I
of
have no
people
idea.
on this campus specifically who were Catholic who were like, well, maybe Sanders because, he talks about caring for the poor and is compassionate and
Yeah.
charitable and that sort of going from that aspect of it. And then there's sort of the other side of people who are like, he's a socialist. That reminds me of all the socialists.
Yeah,
He
Nations
might
on
have a
Hammer
guilt
and sickle, hammer and
complex,
sickle,
at
hammer and
least.
sickle.
yeah.
Yeah. With Sanders, the thing is, part of me thinks, okay, well, he seems like a much better person than the other two, but I think his policies would do probably just as much damage.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think I could probably bring myself to vote for him either. Whenever I sat there and really looked at it, but I'd be tempted to, just because he doesn't seem like an awful human being.
He seems a little more credible.
He does. Whether or not
He's very
that's
genuine.
true, I'm
Yeah.
not saying that's true.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's true, and I am the
But
furthest thing from a socialist you can
but
be.
the
But
persona he puts out.
right,
Yeah.
right. It's at least the persona is much more enjoyable. I've found myself watching lots of Bernie Sanders clips and disagreeing with every word that comes out of his mouth, but at least going, I could have a cup of coffee with this guy.
Yeah.
I couldn't have a cup of coffee with either of the other ones.
No, I agree with you.
Coffee wouldn't stay in the cup. So
I agree with you completely about him being a little bit more agreeable. But I also agree about the fact that his policies would probably do a lot more damage.
Yeah.
Because you can have misguided compassion, and I don't know Bernie. We haven't had coffee.
No.
But that would do just as
Bernie
much
Sanders,
damage.
if you're watching this, call me.
I would love to
we'll
have
have
coffee.
that cup
That'd
of
be really
coffee.
fun.
In fact, I'm on the panel and we'll have
Yeah,
coffee.
seriously,
Yeah.
it'll all be good.
Yeah.
But yeah, policies made with good intentions but with bad consequences, like
Just the same results in the end, so.
as bad intentions.
Yeah.
So we back at square one.
Yeah.
So
Well, I
you
guess
guys
to talk-
discussed it, I guess.
I guess to talk about something in policy, do any of you know about the trade positions of Donald Trump? Because I think that's one thing he's really
China.
He doesn't like
China,
what was it,
China.
NAFTA or the. Well, there's one big trade agreement
Yeah, he doesn't like
that
NAFTA,
he
yeah.
does not want passed.
Yeah. No, he doesn't like NAFTA.
Yeah, I don't know because I think some people are saying he has a very sort of isolationist attitude, and that he's like, forget all the other countries, we're making America great again, and by ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is, by the way, not how economies have worked for a long, long time, centuries. Trade is how economies work, and so he appeals to that section of Americans that says, we got to keep the jobs here. We got to keep all the jobs we can here, and that's obviously, you don't want to say that people don't need work. That's obvious, but he wants to do it through things like, he basically wants to start trade wars. He wants to economically hurt the guys that allow companies that started in America to come over and employ people over there.
Well, that's the thing I got is that he, in watching the debates, he wants to use every loophole he can to burn everybody else,
Yeah.
and that his idea is that, well, right now my businesses are my empire,
Right.
but then if you let me president, I'll make America my empire.
Right.
And there was one time in the last debate where he talked about how in Florida he had some workers coming in out of country, and he was sort of manipulating the laws.
Mm-hmm.
But he said flat out, it's very bad for the workers. And I probably shouldn't use them, but I still do.
Right.
But because I know that system and how bad it is, I'll be able to change it.
It
when
was
I'm
at that
president.
moment that I trusted him, really. Whenever
Yeah,
he
well,
said,
it's
I'm
just
doing a
sort of
bad thing, but, it's what's good
That's
for
the
me.
exact same thing he had where he's like, oh yeah, I buy all the politicians.
Yeah.
I know how it works because I'm the one influencing
Right.
everybody.
Right.
So vote for me because nobody controls me because I'm usually the one controlling everybody else.
Right,
And I
right.
think that's another reason a lot of people like him, actually. I'm really glad
Yeah.
you brought that up, because
Uh-huh.
he does tend to present himself as being outside the system,
Mm-hmm.
but because he's been helping to run the system. So it's a weird dichotomy that people don't really pick up on, because it's like, yes, he is outside of influence in a sense, but he is his own influence. And who's his influence? Nobody operates in a vacuum. Who's talking to him?
Right.
We don't know who his advisors are, and we don't know anything like that. And if he really is so independent, then who does he depend on? Who is he going to hire to make policy decisions?
Yeah, yeah.
And he's a smart guy. You don't go, I know that a lot of people recently have said a lot of things about how he made his money, and I'm not qualified to touch on that. I am a journalist, okay? End of story. I'm a vet tech in the summer. I don't know anything about that. But I do know that, you don't get there without being smart and without being strategic. And I know that we talk about him being a loose cannon oftentimes in our culture, but you really don't go from having a small loan, even a small loan like that, to having tons of businesses without some kind of strategy. And I think that we will all be very surprised as this race goes on to see what his strategy is, because I'm very certain that he didn't enter this without some kind of plan. And while every move might not be thought out, I think that we're doing a great disservice to him, but also doing ourselves a lot of damage in our ability to choose a candidate well, with real clear thought on Catholic moral principles, on respecting solidarity and subsidiarity, and the dignity of the human person, and proper care of the environment, and like creating a world and a country in which like even the smallest person really can thrive, not in a hippy dippy way, but in a real way. If we don't pay attention to his patterns and his behavior and look at some of these critical moves he's making during times when maybe people aren't watching what he's doing, because I think that would give us an insight into his character and really maybe more the heart of his platform, because he's not stupid. He's a really smart guy, a little bit eccentric, a little bit off the chain, and like, granted, I don't know who I'm going to vote for either, but I don't think that we can write him off as crazy, and I'm not saying that we are, but I think that like Catholics in general need to be careful, because it can be very easy to be like, yeah, I'm for Trump, or yeah, I'm against Trump, without saying, this guy made millions, billions, tons of money, sometimes in a way that's not okay.
Well,
Yeah.
He knows something is up. He's got a plan of some kind, even if it's insane.
Yeah, let me interject there. We have no idea how much money he's made because he won't release his tax returns. So he
That's
claims
true.
to be worth
That's
between
true.
$5 and $10 billion, but he takes tax cuts
That's true.
that are designed for people who make less than $250,000 a year. So how much money the guy actually has in the bank, so to speak, is a total mystery. And he said that he's not going to release. He's breaking
Oh, did he come out
precedent,
and
and he
say
said
that
he's
now?
not going to release his tax returns
Interesting.
before the general election, which, you know, of course, just sets my head on fire. Like, well, of course you're
Let's
not,
scream on the internet.
because you don't have $10 billion, right? If I had $10 billion, I'd be like, here you go, look at my $10 billion. You don't have nearly that many $1 billion. You know, but he said he's not going to. So I sit there and I wonder, is he really a successful businessman? I mean, he's got lots of bankruptcies. He's got lots of stuff that just hasn't come together over the years.
That's true.
People talk about his independence and how he's self-funded his campaign. What they don't realize is he announced he's not going to self-fund his general election campaign. Why? Because you're not allowed to do that.
What about the pro-life platform? Because he's gone back and forth on that. What do you think about that?
yeah.
Because that's not really an issue that you can vacillate on
Right.
with any degree of credibility unless people are just naive. And frankly, a lot of our country is naive. I was once naive, and sometimes I still dabble in it occasionally. But like,
It's fun
what
on
do you-
Fridays.
oh, thank you. What do you think about that? Because that's probably one of the most critical issues for at least our Catholic voters right now, is the pro-life issue, euthanasia,
Yeah.
and an economy that doesn't victimize people or marginalize people.
Right. I think at best he doesn't care. That's just from the way that he's flip-flopped on it.
Yeah, I would say the same
Yeah,
thing.
that's the impression I got.
Yeah, he's saying things like, "Oh, I'll leave it to the states" or something. but
Right.
then
Well,
comes back and
yeah.
says
He made the
something else.
comment that he doesn't think abortion laws need really to change. You know, so
And then we have Father Frank Pavone, who's like, well, no, Catholics should consider him. He's evolving on the position.
Oh, really?
He
Yeah.
has made.
Wasn't he just
He did
here?
evolve on it.
Okay.
I don't know what his final form is yet, but there's a new Pokemon game coming out soon.
yeah,
Oh, dear.
I don't see it as something you can. Again, it's like people are basically saying, take that bet. Right, take that bet that he's going to come around. And I've actually had a lot of people tell me, well, you should pray for Donald Trump that he does come around. And well, yeah, I mean, look, I pray not only for the president, but anybody who's running for public office around the country, because we're in a horrible place right now. I mean, I think everybody here knows that. But the issue is, why does that argument apply to Donald Trump and not to Hillary Clinton? Because especially if you see them as so fundamentally opposed to things. You have Donald Trump who's on the record as saying he's never really felt the need to ask God for forgiveness for anything. Yeah, he said that. You can look it up. It's on YouTube. He's Presbyterian, I think, at least nominally. So he goes to church and he takes a little wafer and a little cup of juice, and that's his spiritual time.
His
so to
favorite
speak.
Bible verse is 2 Corinthians.
Yeah.
What's
And then he quoted another verse in Proverbs that doesn't actually exist. So that was fun too. So I look at that and I go, okay, well, yeah, no, I should pray for him because I don't know the state of his soul, but based on a comment like that, I would worry. But also, why does that argument not apply to Hillary Clinton? And I've not gotten a satisfactory answer from anybody on
I
that.
can give you an
either.
answer.
Okay.
I would say, I mean, yes, pray for Hillary Clinton as well. As Catholics, it's our duty and responsibility to pray for our public leaders, regardless of the state of their soul, or what we think it might be. But Trump has a lot of ground. Like we said at the beginning, he really appeals to people who feel like they've been oppressed by the man, for lack of a better term. He is really appealing to people who have a sense of anger and frustration over where they're at. And with Dinesh D'Souza's recent movie about Hillary Clinton and the Democratic legacy, has anyone heard about that?
No, I didn't. He made another one.
I know he made a movie about Obama.
Yeah, I saw the
made one about
Obama
Hillary
one, but now
Clinton.
he's got a Hillary Clinton one out. That's cool.
With that one coming out soon, I think it might already be out. It's showing in select theaters. It really talks a lot about some of the roots of the Democratic Party and how it's not as equal as it claims to be. Not necessarily in its current conception, but its roots, and that it can't really claim to stand for the justice that it claims to stand for. So with that happening, and because of Ms. Clinton's history in the presidential office, and because of her history as the Secretary of State, and because of the things that happened while she was secretary, it's much more likely, at least in my opinion, which I'm a college student, again, take it with a grain of salt, I yell at people in public, it seems like Donald Trump is much more likely to win the presidency right now because of that. Because he appeals to people who want someone to come in and make a show and fix it. Literally,
Right.
people want someone to fix the problem, but the problem isn't in the politics. It's not in the presidency. It's in the fact that nobody knows where they're at. We're having a massive identity crisis in America.
Well, and the first thing I want to say to that before I lose the train of thought is that definitely people should not refrain from voting. They should go
Yeah.
out and vote for everything that they feel that they can vote morally. You know, they should go and vote for local elections, for state elections. Like, they should not stay home in November because there's lots of stuff going on. But with Trump, the thing that again, I sort of sit back and say I don't know about is just from the litany of things he has said over his lifetime. You know, I look at him and this is not, again, you know, you can always be wrong about somebody's soul, but from the things he said, I see him as a morally depraved person. And I don't like to say that about anybody.
Yeah, especially not on YouTube.
No, but I feel the need to say that about somebody who's running for president, right? I wouldn't say that about my neighbor, right, on YouTube, but I will say that about somebody who's running for president. You know, I mean, I won't quote the stuff he said just because you'd have to edit me out. But the stuff he said about his daughter, the stuff that he said about women.
Well, stuff he says about everybody.
The stuff he says about everybody.
Yeah, just step right up, really.
Well, he insults
Sometimes.
everybody except for white guys, but, you know,
He
okay.
insulted Rand Paul.
Okay, fair, yeah, all right. Well, who doesn't insult Rand Paul?
Oh.
I'll insult Rand Paul. Where am I at? That's a good point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I just worry about that as well. I see them.
That's something else people don't talk about in the presidential race. It's like all of a sudden, everything you've done before your 4 years in term, like, doesn't count. And it's like,
Right.
these people have lived a long
Yeah.
life, and we're not going to consider the character they displayed
Right.
in whatever they were doing beforehand as a part of
Right.
their campaign. Like, you bring up an excellent point.
Well, and the thing is, we know Hillary Clinton's character. My worry is we're not paying enough attention to Donald Trump's.
That's a very
That's
very
what
fair
scares
point.
me.
Yeah.
So I hold off. That's pretty much, it's very boring, right? My whole position is I don't know about this, but
That's a
I
good
hold off
point.
on saying that he's better than her.
Yeah.
So I
because
guess
of those reasons.
one issue that's for a lot of people who feel they can vote for Trump but also can't vote for Hillary either is the option of voting third party.
Right.
And then there's the issue of, all right, well, which third party candidate do you go with? Because it seems like there's a couple that are trying to gain some traction and become the main one. I think the two immediate ones are Gary Johnson and Jill Stein. Gary Johnson's from the Libertarian Party and
Right.
Jill Stein's from the Green Party. But there's also, both of them are pretty socially liberal. So there's this one other guy, I'm blanking on his name, but he's trying to get the sort of like disgruntled Ted Cruz voter base.
Yeah.
Do you remember his name?
No, I don't. I know who you're talking about. That's a problem with third parties, isn't it? We can never remember who they are. It would be
No,
much
I was
more
going to
appealing.
double check all this and fact check live on my laptop, but it decided to update right now.
Well, oh my.
So I gotta wait like 10 minutes or something. So, do any of you guys have thoughts on whether a third party vote is a wasted vote or?
The way I look at it, the only reason third parties don't win is because everybody says third parties can't win.
And also first past the post.
Well, yeah.
Right there, aren't they?
Oh yeah, there they are.
There you go.
This is cool. For those of you, if this is going to be in, there's a screen with all the candidates on it right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fun technology.
Yeah, that's way too many. Wait,
Yeah.
this is just
Are these all third parties? Pick one.
Oh my God.
Constitution Party.
I got Bishop
what?
Julian Lewis
What?
Jr.
Wait. That's
Ordained
Catholic
bishop?
I don't think
no.
so.
Ordained bishop and God first man of faith.
Is that his what?
Yeah,
Oh,
I
I thought it was the
don't-
name
That
of
sounds
the
like
church
one-
or something.
Catholic.
It's
That
not
sounds like
Catholic.
one of those
No.
internet
No, it might,
ordinations.
yeah. The ones
like Pope Michael.
those ads would show up underneath my videos. They'd be like, "Get your free like priest
No,
degree."
Pope Michael was
Interesting.
ordained by his mother. Now we all know that.
You get the, do you remember those like pastor's degrees that you can get online that always showed up
Trans-
on my
hey,
videos?
Humanist
what you
Party.
just brought up about Zoltan Istvan. Scroll down. His
Oh.
main priority is the allocation of funding for research scientists to develop augmentations for the human body that will destroy disease, enhance natural senses, and even conquer the specter of death. Okay, I think
Specter
that
of
is
death.
taking it way too far.
Oh, we could vote for Benjamin
least that
Weigel,
sounds
bus driver.
At least
bus
that
driver
sounds-
for president.
he's a
Yeah,
Marine
it always
and a
works
bus
out well when
driver.
we play God. That sounds like a great idea.
No, but if we're gonna play God, let's go all the way.
No,
you know?
no, you need to leave the panel before I yell at you right now. I have a question. So, for everybody, particularly for Joe, about America and making America great again. That's really what all the candidates are claiming to do right now. Even though Donald Trump is the only one who outright says in his platform, I want to make America great,
Right.
we're voting for a president right now because through the slow progression, the progress, we've decided that the president has to be the person to fix everything. We're ignoring Congress, we're ignoring literally the rest of our political system. We're ignoring state legislatures, really. But it's because people perceive that something very bad is happening in America, in my personal opinion. I think that everyone is noticing a train right now. We're moving somewhere that we really don't want to be. And I think that's why we're getting candidates that seem kind of off the walls. In your estimation, from what you know from class, from watching the news, from your internet rambling, what do you think a couple of the biggest issues are right now? In the regular life of American, or for a Catholic to be concerned about besides being pro-life, like abortion.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Because if we're talking about voting and how to vote well, we should probably talk about some of the other things that we're worried about. And this doesn't have to be practical. I know that I would personally say nobody talks about human dignity even in our Catholic elementary schools. And that's a super not presidential topic, but it is an important conversation to have about our country.
Yeah,
and
the
where we're at as a
individual to the whole
people.
society is important. So, I mean, every small part matters, and there's so much going down the hill in so many little ways. But, of course, at the end of the day, as a whole, we're going the wrong direction. Yeah.
We have gotten so petty
Mm-hmm.
that we're arguing about who can use what bathrooms. And so fundamentally, I see the breakdown of the American political system as laying fully at the feet of the American public. And we like to blame the guys in Washington, but we put them there. And we like to blame the guys who sell us things, but we buy their stuff.
Yeah.
And I just think that probably the first thing that Americans ought to do as a whole is to step back from what they think the problems are with the country and start to ask themselves, what do I do in my daily life that aggravates that problem? Because we all do stuff all day long that we don't even realize until we sit back and think about it. Things that we do to our neighbors. Look, you could just throw out the question, how many people who are going to be watching this don't know their neighbors' first names?
Probably a lot.
Right?
Yeah. Probably a lot.
How many people don't, they don't, when they're at work, they're not invested in, not just work, right? Work can be really boring, but the people that are there, right? These are people either, especially if you're Catholic, either these people really matter, either they're really sons and daughters of God who are going to go on through eternity, and every single thing you say and do matters, or it doesn't. Go home and just be done with it. Log back onto the computer until the country runs itself into the ground and the power shuts off. But really, if we believe that, then that's how we should act. And that should change the way that we think about everything, politics included. And if we had a country where people were obsessed with their neighbors, not in this invasive way, but in a way that, you knew who they were and what they cared about and what they needed, we wouldn't be rioting, we wouldn't be, throwing insults, we wouldn't be
If we were
voting
more-
for crazy.
Yeah, focused outside of ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Right now it's, people, the old saying is people vote with the purse, they vote with the pocketbook, with the wallet. And that's always going to be a factor. You're not going to vote yourself into poverty, right?
No.
But that can't be the factor.
No, okay.
It can't be, what do I get out of this? Which guy or gal now do I like the best because they're going to do what or they're going to tell me what I want to hear.
Right.
What about my neighbor? Doesn't my neighbor matter? Doesn't he have kids? Doesn't he have a wife? Doesn't he have hopes and dreams?
Right.
Isn't he important too? And that doesn't mean that you see the world starry-eyed, like nobody ever does anything wrong, or that you just have to make excuses for everybody. Right, yeah,
Yeah.
you want to get rid of that, but you definitely need to see it as, my starting point is that people are fundamentally good and fundamentally flawed, and that's what we're working with,
Yes.
myself included.
Yes.
And if you don't realize that, then you might as well not even try, because you're just going to make things worse. So I don't know if that answers your question.
That answers the question beautifully, and actually, it's
Yeah,
very.
wow. I'm so glad I got that. Yeah,
Mhm.
that was great, Joe. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so thank you for watching. If you have any thoughts, as I'm sure all you do,
I'm sure you do.
leave them in the comments below. We love to hear them.
Oh, and also with these political discussions, not that what they said is fantastic and I loved having them here today, but anything that's said politically on this channel is not always necessarily in line exactly with what newcatholicgeneration.com holds. I'm not saying that we have our own strict beliefs or opinions on candidates, but we will discuss them, bring the facts to you here at New Catholic Generation. So thank you for watching, everybody, and we would love to see your comments below.
Everybody here is much nicer than me. Just as a disclaimer, everybody here is much
I'm
nicer
not saying
than I am.
that. I didn't even say I
didn't
don't
say
agree with you,
anything.
Joe.
I didn't say
say I
anything.
don't agree with
Haven't heard me
you.
yell at me.
No.
I'm just saying for the website.
Oh, yes.
Because there are a lot of people that are involved in the website.
Renee is our PR.
Yes.
Hi.
You do a good job, by the way.
All right, guys. We'll see you later. Thanks for watching.